So yesterday afternoon, I released a video detailing Michigan football's additions on their defensive staff. The Wolverines added Greg Scruggs to coach the defensive line from Wisconsin. They added Brian Jean Mary to coach the linebackers from Tennessee. And they added Stephen Adegoke to coach the defensive backs, coming from the Houston Texans as their safeties coach. Well, Stephen Adegoke has decided to remain with the Houston Texans. This reported just about an hour or 30 minutes after I released my video talking about Michigan football's defensive staff additions. Nonetheless, Sherrone, Michigan's head coach, and Wink Martindale, Michigan's defensive coordinator, were interviewing another candidate at the same time. And even though they decided to reach out to Adigo first and he was their preferred option, this candidate does have different upsides along with downsides, and this candidate's name is LaMar Morgan. He is going to be targeted by Michigan football, and this is being reported by Sam Webb and other Michigan insiders, and this was a candidate whose name was out there in relation to Michigan's secondary coach position for quite some time. LaMar Morgan coached under Jesse Minter at Vanderbilt, where in 2021 Minter was the defensive coordinator and Morgan was the cornerbacks coach. He's been the defensive coordinator of the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns for the past 2 seasons, where he played from, I think, 2003 to 2007 as a defensive back. So whether you're watching this video when LaMar Morgan is hired by Michigan or you're watching before the official announcement's made, I don't care really regardless. I'm going to talk about LaMar Morgan, break him down, who he is, what benefits he brings, and what he can do with this defense and also with a secondary room that is loaded at Michigan. I expect the Wolverines to announce his hiring within the 24 hours following the release of this video. But welcome back, fellow football fanatics. It's your host, College Football with Sam. Before we get into any further details, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, comment your reaction to Stephen Adegoke turning down Michigan's offer and returning to the Texans, and comment what you think about LaMar Morgan. I will be posting an article or two about him down below in the video description, and I will also post a link to sportsreference.com detailing the 2023 Louisiana Ragin' Cajun football statistics. So you can look through the defensive yards allowed per game, passing, rushing, average touchdowns allowed per game, scoring defense, etc. And let me know what you think. Louisiana is obviously in a different league than Michigan. That's obvious, but that doesn't mean we can't learn some things from his tenure there. And finally, before we get any further, please remember, if you want to support the channel, purchase from my merchandise store via the link in the description or the pinned comment, only if you want to, no pressure. And same goes for supporting the channel via the Patreon page, where you will occasionally get bonus content if you're an All-American or Heisman patron. Tomorrow, I am going to be making a post on my Patreon detailing a future video, sort of doing a trailer in terms of writing an article, or rather a blog post on my Patreon for a future video that I am going to do. So if you want to support the channel and get some insider access occasionally, sign up for my Patreon. But LaMar Morgan, he's Jesse Minter's recommendation because the two work together, and Morgan has play calling experience. So part of me wonders that if and when Michigan brings him on the staff, will there be a co-defensive coordinator title attached? Will he just be the defensive backs coach? Who knows? But this is the target that Michigan is zoning in on. And just 2 days ago, at the time of this recording, Chris Peterson wrote on GBM Wolverine a secondary coach that'd be perfect for Michigan football. This is very brief, so I'm going to read the whole thing. This is before the announcement of Adigo and before he turned Michigan's offer down. Michigan football head coach Sherrone is closing in on a new defensive line coach. Again, this is written before all the defensive hirings were made official. But he's also been busy trying to replace Steve Klinkskill as the secondary coach. Greg Scruggs from Wisconsin looks to be the guy to replace Mike Elston, and it seems like a perfect fit. He was the director of player development at Cincinnati before becoming the D-line coach. He also worked for the Jets for a season before joining Luke Fickell with the Badgers. Scruggs is a great recruiter, in my opinion. That was essential because Elston is an elite recruiter. Wink Martindale should be a solid defensive coordinator, but I don't expect him to bring much on the recruiting trail other than playing for a guy who knows how to call defense. That's why the other hires need to be home runs on the recruiting trail. And one name that has caught my attention among the candidates reported by Sam Webb of the Michigan Insider is Louisiana defensive coordinator LaMar Morgan. Why would Morgan be a perfect fit to replace Steve Klinkskill? Well, he spent the past 2 seasons as the defensive coordinator at Louisiana. He also spent the 3 seasons prior to that coaching cornerbacks, spending 1 season at Vanderbilt under Jesse Minter. According to Webb, Morgan was on the short list of candidates for Minter if there ever was an opening, and Morgan makes a lot of sense. Not only is he familiar with the Ravens' defensive system run by Minter and Michigan football, he has play calling experience and would give Michigan another recruiting connection to the South, where Morgan has played and coached for many years, because he hasn't just coached at Louisiana or Vanderbilt, he's also had stops at Houston and Western Carolina. So he's experienced in the college game in the South, familiar with recruiting and development. There are other quality candidates on the list, yada, yada, yada. That was a few days ago. It was really being narrowed down to Adegoke and Morgan. And right now, with Adegoke returning to the Texans, I'm expecting Morgan to be announced as the defensive backs coach with maybe a co-defensive coordinator title. Who knows? Within the next 24 hours, either Friday night or Friday afternoon, Saturday. I don't necessarily know. But what I care about more than the announcement, more than the semantics, is what LaMar Morgan could bring to Michigan. Now, his defenses have not been stellar. They haven't. 37th and 92nd in scoring is not very impressive. Same with 31st and 81st in passer rating allowed. I zoomed in on that point because that's the position where he coached. The safeties are a part of the secondary. They're going to be most involved in pass defense. However, he is familiar with Minter's system. Also, we have to give him benefit of the doubt relating to the fact that whether it's Vanderbilt or whether it's Louisiana, many of the schools he's worked at have tiny talent pools and are put at a massive disadvantage. So the fact that he had a top 50 defense in one of his seasons where he was coordinator, I think is somewhat impressive. I'm not going to say that he's an elite defensive coordinator. I think potentially far from it. But I think that he's better as a defensive backs coach than he is as a defensive coordinator. He understands recruiting. He has play calling experience, unlike Adegoke. I thought that Adegoke had a better track record of working with defenses, but that was simply as an assistant. He had no play calling experience. Maybe Morgan, with knowing the Ravens system and calling plays for a few seasons, you could have a legitimate case to give him a co-defensive coordinator title and have him collaborate with Wink Martindale. Again, for reference, he was the defensive coordinator and safeties coach at Louisiana for the previous 2 seasons. The reason I'm making this video is to just give some details about him, and I would say prepare all of you for when he is hired, along with the fact that only 30 minutes to an hour after I released my video talking about Michigan's new defensive staff, there was another change that was announced in Adegoke remaining with the Texans. So this is sort of an additional piece to that video released yesterday. I will link that video that I mentioned in the description and also in the pinned comment or below the pinned comment at the top of the comment section. Louisiana allowed 28.6 points per game in 2023 on defense. They allowed 385.8 yards, and on the ground, they allowed 3.9 yards per carry, which is not bad for a running defense. However, they on average faced 44 rushing attempts for 170.8 rushing yards. So not exactly super impressive either, but given the talent they have, run defense seemed to be solid just from what I'm looking at from a box score standpoint. It seems like the Sun Belt, just from their defensive averages, it seems like the Sun Belt is more of a run heavy conference, just getting the brief gist of it. But that's all I'm doing is just glossing over some of these statistics. In 2022, his defense allowed 22.8 points per game. They allowed 4 yards per carry on the ground, only 35 rushing attempts allowed, though. They allowed 32 passing attempts compared to 2023 when they only allowed about 29, but they allowed the same amount of passing yards. So they had a more efficient passing defense in 2022 and a more efficient defense overall, only allowing 361.7 yards, only allowing 5.3 yards per play in 2022. They allowed, that's crazy, they allowed 5.2 yards per play in 2023, a decrease, and yet the scoring defense was that much worse. It's interesting. I haven't watched much of Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns football. I know that Billy Napier coached there in 2021 and had a lot of success, and now he's struggling at Florida. And I know that Michigan's new safeties coach and corners coach and secondary coach, potentially new co-defensive coordinator as well, replacing Steve Clinkscale in all aspects and titles, is probably coming from there. And I think that I'm going to sit down and watch some Louisiana defensive film. And maybe later I can come back and make an episode and detail what I think about what I expect to be Michigan's next and final hiring of the 2024 preseason. That's all I have to say, though, in this video. Again, this was just a short edition talking about LaMar Morgan, discussing Adegoke, last minute deciding to remain with the Texans. He turned down what seemed like a raise offer from Michigan, and Houston gave him a raise, so they won the bidding war. But LaMar Morgan is still, I would say, a good option, although I would say now, relating back to my video that I released yesterday, I think Greg Scruggs is now my favorite defensive assistant. It was Adegoke, now it's Greg Scruggs, but you couldn't have gone wrong with either of them, and there's a lot to like about LaMar Morgan. I think that he will be great here with the talent. He's going to have more talent here than he's ever had, and that will be a big moment for him to shine, for him to prove himself. And the secondary is loaded with Will Johnson, Rod Moore, Makari Page. Those are all Big Ten, and in the case of Johnson and Moore, All-American players. So go Blue, and thank you for watching the video. Thanks to Crash2488 and Justin Rogg for being Heisman Patreon members. Thanks to Spencer Bringhurst and Armani Torres for being All-American Patreon members. And thanks to Will Loftus, Gabriel Calendar, Roaming Gnome, Matthew Sale, Chris Slane, Austin Christmas, Subin Zah, and Janisha Cockrell for being all conference patrons. Have a phenomenal day, guys, and if you're listening on Spotify, make sure to follow the channel. Have a great day.